Welcome to Sean's Thoughts. How are you doing today? Today, I'm trying something a little bit different. And what I'm going to be doing is I've set up the recording inside with a light. More importantly, that it's warm inside of there as opposed to out here where I like to sit and it's pretty cold. Yet, I'm outside, I'm going to, and I have brought my laptop so that if there are any comments that I'll be prepared, because I know there was one time when I had an awful lot of comments on one of my live streams, but I didn't do any sort of commenting back to them simply because I wasn't at that time ready for it. So I got here a little bit early and I decided to have everything set up so that that possibility is there. So thank you for joining me with your attention. And what we're watching today is a video from my forgiveness course, we'll call it. Well, actually, that's what I did call it when I created it. However, YouTube decided that they didn't believe it to be a course, so they put it back into a normal playlist. However, YouTube does have these awesome selection or ability, perhaps, to create video playlists that perhaps do teach something. And I think personally, forgiveness is something that can be taught, and of course, it's very important for all of us to experience. Unless, of course, we've never had anyone do anything against us, and, well, perhaps there are some. So, thank you for joining me today. I'm actually celebrating a pretty productive week. This week, I put out so many do no thing videos, and I went to some amazing locations to do the filming, and I was on location for a couple of my podcast recordings, which I quite enjoyed, taking in the scenery of where I was while I essentially flowed with the information that I delivered. And well, yeah, sorry, having this monitor here now gives me something to occasionally get distracted by. And so, yeah, you'll have to bear with me as I get used to this perhaps new form and new way of doing things. So, yeah, so as I was saying, this week was very productive. I got several of those videos in which I broke a couple barriers and did a lot of different creative things, got lost in the moment over at Pet Lake with my recent Do No Thing videos, which will be presented this coming week, in which I did some really cool frames, and I'm really excited about, I guess, essentially showcasing them or premiering them when they do come out this coming week. See, what I've done is I've tried to set up a schedule, you can call it. Now, I want to be right off the cuff, upfront about something. See, I believe that spontaneity is super important. That's essentially how I created my channel, was to allow for, whenever I felt like creating a video or whenever I was up to publishing. However, I'm really trying to grow our community and share more of my creations. And one of the things YouTube suggested, or one of these content creators on YouTube suggested, is to have a regular upload date, especially if it's been a while of just releasing whenever we had. I've always released at least one video per week, sometimes 20. Yet, I'm seeing the benefits, you can call it, of having videos up on a regular frequency. And so what I've done is I've set up my Do No Thing videos to come out at on the evenings of the days they're set up, and I have currently 5 set up to come out. And then my podcasts, Sean's Thoughts, this is an example of, if I've done any pre-recordings on location, as I have done and will be published tomorrow, actually, another one of them, then those will be published in the morning. And yeah, so a little bit of consistency. And then, of course, I like to just come on and do these live videos. Thank you, Ford Horses. I don't know why I should feel bad about it, but that's okay. That's really okay. Yeah, see, there's an example of a possible distraction. And, I appreciate it because you've given me the opportunity, my first opportunity, to actually have something come up and, be able to reflect and still continue. See, the one thing that I'm aware of, and I've actually experienced a lot of it recently, is the community that I'm a part of. We often have bots and different people come into the community, and we can easily see when they purposely want to steer up something versus an organic situation where, there's a misunderstanding or something. There's definitely lots of people in between as well, but it's given a lot of people experience in being able to deal with any sort of adversities and obstacles. See, even a comedian, for instance, standing on the stage in front of a whole bunch of people and having someone heckle him, well, a strong comedian will often be able to turn that disadvantage into his advantage. And that's essentially one of the perhaps strengths that many people would benefit from, is taking and looking at different struggles and obstacles as opportunities to strengthen oneself, to forge them, to make them better at whatever it is that they're trying to do. So I thank you for that comment. And yeah, continuing on. So I've been talking a lot about the Matrix, and right now I think I want to step away from that, and that's why this particular video that I put up is on my forgiveness portion, because I think that even when a majority of the world moves forward to what we're calling New Earth, or however it is that we want to look at it, there is going to be situations where people are going to hold on to resentment, and even maybe resentment of things that are happening right now in our world today. There is an awful lot of conflict and hostility and anger and essentially hate going around the world. And in my opinion, anyways, a lot of this is meant to essentially incite people and create separation. See, I've often talked about how separation was a tool and a device that's always been used to essentially put us in each of our own corners, making it a lot more challenging, I'll say, for us to ever unite and come together. And when we come together, when we're closer than 6 feet, for example, we do exchange energy, and it makes us essentially stronger, more fortified people when we have community, when we have people that, even if we're not in full harmony with, meaning that we have things that we disagree upon, when we can come together and unite. And Aaliyah, hi, how are you doing? Sorry. Yeah, I'm going to have to really get used to it. As soon as that popped up, I got distracted again. So, anyways, hello, Aaliyah. I love your name. So, as we essentially get stronger and we have more obstacles and we come together, we are able to be stronger. We are able to be more unified. And that unification isn't going to come just with everyone suddenly waking up one day and saying, hey, I'm a completely different person. There's going to take a vast amount, or maybe I don't want to project upon it, but there is going to take some reconciliation, or basically forgiveness. But more than just forgiveness, it's essentially reframing the way that we looked at a lot of what existed in our life. See, I've come to understand that the concept of, for instance, magic has been prolific throughout our world a lot more than we're aware. Now, we're aware that, for instance, there was witches being drowned, and they were against any sort of magic, especially from churches and such. And yet I've come to understand that this type of job is a lot more common maybe than I'd ever thought or ever had the idea to believe. and that there's actually people in our world who are fully aware that, for instance, gossip, when we talk negatively about our leaders and about our different politicians and whoever, that energy from the person speaking negatively to that person does get transmitted, and it does affect that person. And that we as individuals, when we get angry and we repeat our stories, especially with anger and hate, and to a group of people who may echo chamber what we have to say, that all of that energy essentially goes out and it targets who we're essentially talking about. And so why I'm bringing that up is that we've all contributed. I know I have. I know I've gotten into those spiraling down gossip sessions where, we added our 2 bits into someone else's story, and we essentially used our traumas in order to relate. That's essentially part of how humans maybe have been taught, maybe we have been programmed to, is to relate by sharing our traumas. And yet that experience is creating more, because hate can only create more hate. And anyways, going all the way back to what I was saying, is that forgiveness therefore seems to be a road, a very big and important road towards where we're going, towards our destination, which for me and many others is New Earth or New Eden or Gaia, or like whatever it is that you perceive or foresee to be the name of the place where things change, things get better and better for everyone. When I was walking out on the street the other day, I saw an older lady, and actually I've seen a few old women now begging for money and stuff on the streets, and they're carrying their normal clothes. Like, that's hard to explain, but it's not tattered clothing. These are new, good clothing. And there's a lot of different types of people that now I'm coming across that appear homeless, people that are essentially 1 or 2 days removed, like since they've actually gotten into that state. There's a lot of struggle going on right now. And I'm grateful every day for every blessing that I do receive and every benefit that God bestows upon me. And yet, yeah, there's a lot of things that we're going to have to forgive going forward. And so, as I was saying, that's why I essentially put on my video, and it's part of a forgiveness course. So if you are inclined to perhaps listen to things that are on forgiveness, it's not just teaching forgiveness, it's also forgiveness is found a lot of times in stories, or not just stories for forgiveness. I mean, one of the best ways of learning, I'll guess you could say, or experiencing or having those aha cognition moments is when we listen to stories. See, we can, of course, relate with one another and share each other's stories and try to one-up who got worse, but we can also learn by listening to different moral stories. Like, for instance, Aesop Fables was something that I was playing around with in the beginning, because they're short, essentially 1-minute video type of stories, in which when we listen to a fable or to a moral story, sometimes we have an easier ability to go, now I understand. And well, there's a lot of other different stories, such as the Chinese farmer story, or the water pump story, or the elephant story. Like, there's a lot of these different stories. And anyways, when we listen to stories, sometimes us having our own cognitions is far superior to learning, rather than having someone stand up in front of us and tell us all these things. It's the story which relates the message, because it's our own aha moment. It's not like we're getting to the end of a punchline and then having to put the whole punchline together. So one of the most amazing speakers when it comes to telling stories that I've heard in person is Dr. Greg Braden, and he has some phenomenal stories, and he really captivates you. And they're really, of course, I guess in a sense, rehearsed because he's told them many times in many different seminars. Yet I find the way that he connects a person to a story really does drive home any cognitions or aha moments that I have. So anyways, I definitely appreciate you, Greg Braden, and also Greg Braden was the first person who maybe coined the phrase, but I don't really know. But for me, anyways, it's where I heard the term the divine matrix. And the divine matrix, the way he explained it, you'll have to read the book. However, how I've come to understand the divine matrix is that the divine matrix is the place that you could say, are going to, and where we have been is the false matrix. Where we have been is the area that has the artificial synthetic overlays and, the control. And yet the divine matrix was, or is, the place that has the primordial directive. And that is where we are connected with everyone, and where you could say New Earth is going. So yeah, Dr. Greg Braden was the first person that I had heard that term, the divine matrix. And in his book that he wrote about, I just really, really appreciated it. So anyways, where are we? We are on a beautiful night. We have some amazing do no thing videos coming out. And those things, each and every time I make a new one, I'm growing more and more connected to their purpose. And I know I get a lot more bolder, and I keep on essentially repeating quite a few things when it comes to the do nothing videos, but I'm actually really utilizing them myself. And what I'm utilizing them for is, of course, the meditation aspect. See, originally I created these things because I was not targeting, but I had the idea in mind that the scroller who's on their phone on a bus or wherever they are in the world could possibly draw upon this, stop, and then watch it, and then experience it, and have that slow, small meditation in between whatever else they're doing in the day. And yet what actually has happened is, one of the challenges that I've had during my awakening is the meditation aspect to it. See, meditation is super important because slowing down is the key to going forward. So when we're in a state of more relaxation, the ability to, or for us to be controlled, is severely decreased. And perhaps that's why many of these older style monks and such, that they would sit in such long meditative stasis or spaces. And maybe that's how you get to there where we're all wanting to go anyways. So the do nothing videos, they have actually offered me personally something to meditate with. I'm always going from one meditation to another and moving, and then I suddenly found my own videos, and I've made a few of them that are longer meditations. And actually, one of the videos called I Foresee the Dawn of the Feminine Divine, that's a 7-minute video that I turned into a 1-hour video with a 53-minute meditation. Now, the idea of that was, of course, to reflect and to view these beautiful pictures that I dedicated to the staff at UNN. And yet I found the actual whole process of me sitting there watching the videos to be very meditative as well. And one of the ideas that I have for what I'm going to be creating upcoming is to take some of those very beautiful pictures that I co-created with an AI. Essentially, I told the AI what phrases, what words, I infused it with different areas of energies and such. And there's a lot of words and a lot of work to script or to sculpt those particular pictures that I chose for my video. And I have an awful lot of those video pictures that I use for different videos, and even ones that never made it into any sort of video. Anyways, when I was watching the video, the I4C one that I was talking about, I started having all these thoughts come in as I looked at the pictures of myself. See, as I mentioned before, with those images, they weren't just AI generated and put in front of my words. They were purposely hand-picked, but even upon their creation with the terminology, the words, the phrases, the colors, and the imageries, and all that lovely stuff, I infused, that's the word I was looking for. I infused so much energy, and I found that energy coming out in my words again when I was watching my own video. So I've, in a sense, fallen in love with some of my videos, and I really do see them in a gallery type of setting. And yesterday, or the last time I talked, or it could actually be in the video coming out tomorrow. Anyways, I talked about a club where I would serve water and have beautiful images come up, and perhaps that is what I'm going to have. So, hello. Oh, my computer. Hello, Lady True Blue. How are you doing? And Sager997, eyes and kisses, I guess. I hope that you're all doing amazingly wonderful. Actually, oh, this is really cool right now. I'm seeing in the little screen while I'm looking at the people's words, also showing me what's on the camera. And yeah, this is from one of my I4C videos, I believe. Oh, actually, no, this is from my Illuminating Languages video. See, that was another series that I would really love to get to, is the Illuminating Language video. And why is because our words are so powerful. Our words, the way we use them, the vibration, the intention that we put behind them, how we use our words definitely creates our world. Yes, saying hi and those salutations and all that lovely stuff, that's important as well. But when we use the right words, that is far more important in my opinion. And what I mean by that is that we often use words that we don't know what they mean in their totality. Or we use a word because we think we use a word, or we've used the word so many times that way, and then we use that word. And anyways, this Illuminating Languages series that I put out, it helps illuminate the word, not just learn this, what the word actually means and the real way of how to use it. It's also where the word came from, the origins of the word, the etymology, I think is the proper term for it. And then it's also knowing the similes and the derivatives of the words and the opposites. Similes, suddenly I forgot what that word is, but the opposites of the words. But it's being able to truly know what that word means and how to use it, and then actually being able to put all that energy and intention behind it. So often we'll use words such as want, and we want something. Everybody wants something. But when we want, to want is to be in a state of lack. Like, that's what the word means. So learning and teaching children at schools, the elementary schools, about, tell the class what you want, or work from that word of want, is that we're teaching people to talk about what we lack. And when we lack something, generally we just get more of what we already have. And so, yeah, I definitely hope that I will do a lot more on that Illuminating language. However, you never really know what's coming to us in these coming days, in these coming weeks. I foresee, I have trust in, there is a lot of beautiful change. And I always underline that word beautiful and change, but that whole intention behind it, because I see what's happening around the world. Like, I've heard the issues with Greenland and the fears about that, and NATO, and then there's something to do with Minnesota, and then there's silver prices here, and there's housing collapses, and there's a lot of stuff, a lot of chaos that's going on all around the world. And back to what I was saying before, that really is about trying to maintain us in that state of separation. That's trying to create that distortion so that we don't observe the harmony, or that we are unable to observe the harmony of what's actually transpiring. In a lot of my videos that I've done, I've taken a lot of amazing views of the sun, and the sun herself is just glowing. And from my understanding, in the core of our planet is actually our other sun, or our main sun, and that sun is glowing too. We have this idea that the core of the earth is this molten lava rock, or whatever it is, whatever you've been led to believe. But what I understand is that there is a central sun within our planet. See, Earth, or this planet that we're on, whatever it is going to be labeled or called, is a very important planet in creation. We're on a very important planet in creation. We're not just sitting on a rock floating around in space. We're on something that not only did God create this planet and create everything and all that lovely stuff, this particular planet is important. See, that's another way that they were able to keep us separated, is to separate us from God, from creation, to make us feel inconsequential and small and hamster wheel, and have to pay the taxes and have to pay the debt and keep paying. And they were doing all of that to keep us feeling small. And that's another way of how they kept us separate, is to make us believe that we're on a speck of dust that's floating through the air. And yeah, I definitely encourage you, if you have the opportunity, to go on to the UNN, the GIA reports especially. Actually, I would say both of them. Sunny's reports on UNN are spectacular, and they're positive. Like, it's really great example of how news could be, should be. I don't like to use the word should, but however, the news, the field messenger reports they do from all over the world, there's some amazing different small shorts of people showing things that you may or may not have ever seen without these reports. And the actual investigative research that Sunny herself has done on some of her main or more bigger reports is phenomenal as well. However, I do definitely encourage, if you ever do get a chance, to go back maybe even 2 years onto the GIA reports that are now published on YouTube, and watch through it. See, one of the things that I have been experiencing within my experience right now is there's a lot of people that are joining the awakening right now. And we're all at different stages, different places within our own awakening journey. And, there's some people that have perhaps forgotten what it was to awake. And then there's other people that are just waking up, who maybe aren't really or they aren't aware that, there's other people who have been awakened for a very long time. So there's a mishmash of different stages in life. And yet, we're all, as Carrie Kay said, walking each other home. We're all in this journey together. We all want to go to the same place. And that place is sovereignty. At least that's where I'm wanting to go. I don't want to work for anyone anymore. I'll easily say that, like working for anyone. Now, working together with people, like for instance, on my 5-day adventure course, plug, that I would love for a few million whatever currency of energy that we're using would come into my field, and I can run off into the forest and with 100 people or so, and we'll get together a community and start creating this amazing adventure course. See, I can work with other people, but I'm in a sense done with working for anyone. Actually, part of my work history, of course, when I was younger, in my 20s to 30s, I worked for a corporation, and I worked for retail, and I worked as a manager here and a manager there. Actually, I started working as a manager when I was 15 years old at fast food chain. And I've had my time with working for people, helping them get wealthy. And for the last a little over a decade, I've been really working for myself. I wrote movie scripts, I wrote poetry, I opened up a store, I managed it, created a whole system, created online presence, and, did a lot of working for myself. And that's kind of the way that I would love for it to stay. See, because of my ability to work for myself during the 2020 experience that we all had, I was essentially detached from the fear mongering that went on. When I would go out into the world, I would see all of the fear and the hesitancy and the anger and the stress. And as an empath, I'd be able to feel it as well, not just in, you know, someone yelling at me, because that occasionally happened. It was also in just the energy or the body language and how people treated one another. And so I was very fortunate, and so was my family, that we were able to keep ourselves away from that, away from any of the other stuff, but more importantly, away from the chaotic energy that was a part of that whole experience. And you could say that it was a purpose of that experience. It had, in a sense, an aspect that was positive, and that part was that a lot of people woke up. But it also had an aspect of forging diamonds through fire, because that not only awoke a lot of people, it also was an experience which tremendously changed how people are, and essentially how I was. Prior to that, I was playing video games, and I saw the first March event as in 2020. I saw that as a wonderful opportunity to focus more on my Red Dead Redemption gameplay, because Red Dead Redemption was a game that I had that was, everyone else super loved it, but for me, I felt it was too slow. And yet, when we had that first event where we all had to stay at home, well, I just used it as a opportunity, and I accomplished achievements on Xbox that now mean nothing, that most people in the world hadn't ever done. Anyways, I'm just going through my memories of playing that, but yeah, that's a lot of different topics all streamed together. Let me see. I'm just reading your messages, Lady Blue. You're preparing for your move. Yes. It's almost the end of the month. Yeah, that is such a great word, is desire. As opposed to saying that what a person wants, instead of want, to use the word desire. And another one to use is, instead of using word like, prefer. So I prefer something over something else. Yes, our children can teach us a lot. Actually, my son's taught me a lot. He's been a cornerstone of my awakening process. He's definitely helped me and guided me in a sense, because, you know, as adults, when we become parents, I think that we essentially think more, we think of the world differently, or at least I did. I changed how I perceived the world, and that was essentially out of respect for my son. And I changed my habits, and I started to see things that I did, because, you know, growing up, I would always have, I would be told not to do one thing, and then I would turn around and I would be seeing all the adults and the teenagers and everyone else around me, and even, well, whoever, doing what they were just told not to do, or that they told me not to do. And that's one of the things that I had to learn, is that as an adult, we can't tell or we shouldn't tell, at least in my opinion, our children not to do something when we ourselves are doing it. And this essentially strengthened me in order to make better decisions. And it's really all part of a journey. And, you know, we can circle all the way back to forgiveness too, because self-forgiveness is also a very big part of forgiveness. And I think it's honestly one of the most important parts. And why I say that is, self-forgiveness isn't just forgiving the self. I mean, when I think of self-forgiveness, I think of just forgiveness, like letting go, releasing. So if someone else has, for instance, harmed you and they're no longer in your life, or, you know, you just haven't run into them, like having forgiveness sessions and letting things go with that, like that's releasing from the self. So of course you can always turn words around, but Yeah, self-forgiveness I think is very, very important. And then one of the other things when it comes to the self-forgiveness part as well is there's many people in the world that have done things to other people, and they themselves have good intentions when they started off. And I mean people who were controlled by other people, people who did things unknowingly, or they perhaps felt it was off, but they wanted to continue getting their check, so they continued doing whatever they're doing at the essentially the not sacrifice but the detriment to the other person. Now that's another phenomenal space for self-forgiveness, because we all have reasons, and we all lived in a world where when I was growing up I was told that the lesser of two evils, that we had to choose the lesser of two evils. Like that was what the whole politics was. You got two sides and we're going to choose the lesser of two evils. Because I was asking my parents, like, why do you every year or every X number of years, whenever it is, you vote for someone and then you spend the next X number of years complaining that they don't do anything or they don't live up to anything, and then, oh, we'll get them next time. Another place for self forgiveness or just forgiveness overall. So, yeah, lesser of two evils is definitely something that I'm gonna see. Like, I'm gonna help knock out the door, oust out the door. I think that was the word that went through my head. Because I truly do want to live in a world where every choice that we are choosing, because I believe completely in free will, I believe that God gave us free will, and free will is to make a choice. And, you know, some say that that's why we are in this place that we are, because we had the choice and they used that against us. And yet, the free will, the choices that I would love to make are the ones that benefit all the time, every time. And there's a lot of different ways that things can benefit, but I mean that every choice that we make can be God's choice. It can be the choice which is and does help and does add to our world, to our each of our worlds, however it is we're going forward. So I definitely do see a beautiful world that's blooming. It's everywhere within nature. I'm starting to see it on other people's videos, and what I mean by that is the accelerated plant growth. 2 years ago, I heard that the Garden of Eden, which is in between Iraq and Iran, that it started to spring water again. And these waters, I had got a confirmation from an Iranian friend of mine who said that when she was a little girl, that they would go to that exact spot that I mentioned on a map, and they would get this healing water, and that this water would be something that they would drink as a family or to heal. And 2 years ago, that water started to spring again. And how I see it, at least all this rain, is that that water has essentially circled through our water system, and now you see all of these different plants that are growing at these weird times. Like, we had blooming roses that are normally in the summertime, we had them in the middle of November and it was cold out, and things are essentially choosing when they want to grow. There is a lot of, I guess you could say, leafless trees right now, deciduous trees. However, even those, they took a lot longer to fall. And at some points in time during last summer, there was trees that I had witnessed personally myself that were in multiple stages of growth. So there would be one branch perhaps in winter, and then another branch that was in the fall, and another one in the spring, and flowers that were blooming whenever they wanted to. And, it's remarkable when we start looking for what changes are happening, because when we spend our attention on what we want more of that's going to come. So, of course, when I started looking for all of this, I started seeing more of it. And yeah, yes, it's definitely important that we don't hold grudges, because when we do hold grudges, that essentially limits our ability to forgive, but it also holds that energy of that particular situation. And that when we have it brought up in our memory, whether it's an entity making us remember something, or it's, synchronicity or a coincidence, however it is we want to look, that when if we are holding on to a grudge, then it does bring back that energy up when we get into a state where we're remembering that. And so that's why it's important not to tell more stories about the bad things that happen to you, because every time we're doing it, we're bringing that energy back up. Yeah, I do believe voting is a ritual, but I guess, see, that's the one of the things that I think that we're going to experience. We're going to experience a transition as opposed to just an abrupt change in a lot of our different systems. And so, well, I believe that perhaps in the future, when we're more aligned with all of our power, that we will just simply do what is required of us or asked of us or guided by God to do, or, if we're on our time off, we'll do things that benefit everyone. Yet before we get there, there are many systems I think that may or perhaps could benefit from transitioning. And so I had created a video talking about voting and about using, for instance, cell phones to vote, and making it very transparent and everyone can see who voted for who, and or who voted for what. But I do truly feel that a lot of the voting, you could say, is unimportant. Like, there's a lot of things that we don't necessarily have to vote about, or when we vote one time as a community going forward, then perhaps we can lay it to rest as opposed to keep bringing it up and arguing about it. I think that a lot of more people are going to have a lot more free time and therefore explore a lot of other stuff. So getting too into it, anyways, I really do look forward to more people voting, you could even say, because it would be nice to see community engagement to a degree that we're actually all participating. And maybe voting isn't the end all of participation. Maybe coming together and then everyone working on the plan and then releasing the plan for the benefit of everyone else. And, everyone trusts, and there's a level of trust. And see, that's a big thing that has been distorted by all that separation, is trust in one another. We have this belief, we've seen it in a movie, how this person does that and that's what that means, and so therefore we expect to see it, and then we project it so we can experience it and reinforce the programming. And so all that is saying, that I'm saying with that, is that if we learn or relearn trust in a transparent way, that will also lead not only to forgiveness, but it'll also lead to perhaps not having to vote on very few things. Trusting people. There's a really good phrase in the UNN community that Sunny came up with, and or she said the last time I heard, anyways, is that always assume positive intentions. And I think that's such a beautiful way to trust people. See, a lot of times we tend to hear what someone says. Not only do we have these little voices that are trying to, get us all distorted and chaotic and whatever, we also have our own experiences and our own traumas in our past. And we use all of those things in order to translate what that person said and respond while we're sitting there waiting for what we want to say. So there's a lot of things going on in that moment. And yet, when we always assume positive intention, and of course we learn that we have two ears and one mouth, I might have three mouths because I talk so much, then we are going to essentially have an opportunity to practice that trust. It's a selection process that we have no choice over. I definitely agree with the selection process. See, that's the challenges of the world we lived in. We believed that we had the freedom to make our choices when it came to voting, and that we've never actually, from my understanding, ever truly really voted. We never had the opportunity to vote because the voting process in all aspects was a selection process. There's this amazing channel by M. Spiracy, yeah, M. Spiracy, And she put up these amazing videos explaining how the different bloodline families actually control different parts of the world. And it was a specific set of families. And, you know, after learning that Aristotle was also part of the scientists who were used to create the Matrix, and Aristotle being that person who was responsible for democracy, it definitely adds credence or support to the idea that democracy itself was a project, a test, a way to perhaps, herd the cows their direction better than perhaps in a different type of monarchy or dictatorship. And yeah, she has an amazing channel, and I really, really love. I love watching the videos. I feel that they're AI generated, yet the information resonates heavily with a lot of the stuff that I learn about in the GIA reports and Carrie Kay and even Ram Dass and Paul Saleg. And so, yeah, I've definitely appreciated that addition to my income or streaming in, whatever. So, anyways, I've been talking an awful lot. I hope that you all appreciated and loved one another for all those people who came on today. And even if they were only here, because I totally appreciate them, there was 31 views on this live stream, and I definitely appreciate you, Lady True Blue, and all of your lovely comments. I know I can't see all of them. Definitely I can see those 6 blue hearts. Blue's my favorite color, and love is my favorite thing. So all types of love. So I appreciate everyone and anyone who came on tonight, even if it was for the briefest of moments, sharing our attention, connecting, coming together, creating that connection of love. See, I'll end with this last little bit. See, one of the things that, or not one of the things, I believe that when we are in that state of love, that connection, that not the romantic love, but the unity love, that we are very close to the frequency of God, of Source. And so the more time that we can spend in the state of love, and that's whether it's, walking romantically or alone in deep thought or listening to love songs. And I don't mean the love songs where they're harping on love being lost and broken. I mean the love songs of like joy and bliss and like, you know, positive energy moving forward, not the ones that, you're thinking back at as someone you had lost. But when you're experiencing love and love for a child or love for a parent or whoever it is in your life that you love, when you're feeling that energy is essentially stabilizing the chaos. And that's how I look at what I've been doing with my channel, is stabilizing the chaos in the world around me, centering myself through creation. When we create, we are very, very anchored into the world. And that's in a sense required because there's a lot of energy that's coming into our system, whether it's from the central sun or from the sun up there in the sky or that big space station up there. It's important that we do try to remain as best possible centered. And meditation is an amazing way to do that. There's a whole world out there that's beyond what we can see. And we're starting to see it more often now. I'm starting to see little distortions. I don't know, distortion is not the right word, but little specks of this and that that wasn't there. Or I don't know, it's hard to say. Like sometimes I can actually see what I would call a microbe. Like if I were to look under a microscope, for example, back in my university days, and see all the little things floating around, sometimes I can actually get my eyes to kind of see those little microbes just in the air floating around me. So anyways, my point being is there's a lot of things in our world that we didn't see. We were locked in a visual spectrum. If you've ever seen the spectrum of light, like the actual the actual visible spectrum of light is so small in comparison to all the different energy types, all the different layers of energies, X-rays and gamma rays and this ray and that ray and this stuff. Anyways, my point being is there's a whole world out there that's beyond our visual perception. And so therefore, even things like our thoughts can possibly even hold mass, like hold in the energetic state. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate all of your love, energy, and effort. I appreciate every single person who popped on, and I definitely appreciate my son who watched through this whole video as well. We're all doing this together. New Earth is coming, and we're going to make it shine, and the sun will be there one way or the other. Have a wonderful day, and good night.